The Summer Birds by Penelope Farmer, Part 3, 1. The time that followed the battle was the children's glorious summer. The days were golden blue days, days that began gravely in mist and grew slowly to color as the morning strengthened. Autumn things ripened, hips and hawks, blackberries sweet and sour, and chestnut burrs from the trees that guarded the schoolyard. At first they were green and damp, and when the children stamped on them, milk-white nuts rolled out. But as September passed, the husks hardened, grew browner and pricklier, and the nuts inside swelled huge and rich and red. The children went mad under the chestnut trees, by the railings, grabbing nuts from the grass and playing conkers with them like champions. Mad children they were, bird children, for this year the best nuts did not stay on the topmost branches, safe from the stones thrown to knock them down. The children, flying, brought them to earth triumphant over the tallness of the trees. It was the same with everything. High-growing blackberries, high-growing cob nuts, all came easily to their hands as they flew. But once picked, nothing was quite as huge as it looked from ground level. Charlotte reflected, surveying a smallish chestnut that had seemed a colossus. They flew on long explorings everywhere. It was wonderful, extraordinary, what they had wanted all summer, but just as the chestnuts ripened, time went by until there were only six, then 5, then 4, then 3, then 2, till term began. They met sadly on the second to last day. They did not know how to spend the precious day left to them. It had to be so special. Tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow. Afterwards, it would be all different, they knew, all finished. The boy was very strange that morning, silent and looking at them sideways from chestnut eyes. He was on edge too. Charlotte felt that she understood him less than she had ever done. "What do you think we should do?" she asked him to try to make him come alive again. He did not answer her at first. They waited anxiously for his reply. Even Toddy, who, the battle lost and over, had accepted the boy's leadership without fuss, almost as if he had been tired of the differences himself. At last the boy spoke, and because of what he said, they met next day to fly to the lake, puzzled and curious because they had sensed in his suggestion something hidden, something he would not tell. They flew over the parkland and changing trees to the lake, where old Moo presided with her broken nose and her rakish ivy crown. Leaves floated on the water beneath the little temple. It looked forlorn today, broken under skies that for the first time in weeks were gray, and with a wind that had almost a winter chill to it. Charlotte and Emma had been forced to wear raincoats by Miss Gosling. They had not argued much, in case she spoiled their day, but they had taken them off immediately upon leaving Aviary Hall as a sign of rebellion, although the coats were a nuisance to carry, and they were cold enough to need them. The other children had got away without trouble, parents having forgotten by now the night of the moon picnic, all except Jammy Hat, who was locked in his bedroom for cheeking his father, but who had flown unrepentant out of the window. Now they gathered by the lake. The brambles were crowded with blackberries, and they ate before they took counsel, cramming purple berries greedily into their mouths till their hands and lips were stained. But the boy stood sternly beneath old Moo and waited for them to stop eating and keep silence. He seemed more like a bird than ever today. His limbs were more stretched and angled, his nose longer. His cockle shell was plain, his eyes very bright, and he ate insects unceasingly, like a child let loose in a sweet shop. "This is my day," he said at last. "This is my day." And they did not question it, but waited. "As this is my day," he said, "I want all of you to come with me. I've got a place, a special place. I want to show it to you. Will you come?" "Yes," they said, awed by him. "Is it far? Should we come?" "Please come," he answered persuasively, his face glowing with joy. "I want you to, all of you. You won't regret it, I know." "But what's it like?" said practical Toddy. "Will it take long to get there? Will we be back by tea time? My mum said she'd tan the hide off me if I wasn't back by then." "But everything's all right," insisted the boy. "I promise." He was on edge, excited and jerky. Charlotte watched him closely. A leaf floated down on his head and poised there like a crest, but he did not notice it. "Come with me, come with me, come with me," he crooned, hypnotic, and "Let's go!" they cried, stirred by him. They gathered strength for flight, grouped on the steps beneath old Moo, but Charlotte knew something was wrong. She could not go. She could not let the others go with such a sense of suspicion in her. Yet they were all fired by the boy's enthusiasm, even silly Molly and stolid Annie, and Emma was alight with it, clasping her navy blue raincoat to her. Charlotte tried to catch the boy's eye, but he would not look at her. That was unusual, too. The children rose in the air, the boy urging them on. There was excitement at the mystery, a chatter like starlings, but Charlotte took her courage and spoke out clearly above it. "Where are we going?" she asked sternly. "My secret," cried the boy, mocking her as he had not mocked her for many days, not since the gold plunge from the cliff. "No," she said. "No, our secret. Where are you taking us? I want to know." "And I," said the boy, "I don't want to tell you." "Shut up, Charlotte," the rest said, impatiently hovering, urging flight. "We want to go. It doesn't matter. He won't take us anywhere bad." "No," said Charlotte again, obstinately. "I want to know. I won't go until I do." She knew, as she said this, that it was only herself against them all, that they had only to fly off, and she would be helpless indeed. She would go with them. She would not bear being left behind. It was hard to hide this before the staring eyes of the others. "Charlotte, Charlotte, Charlotte," they seemed to be muttering. Strangers suddenly turned against her. The boy played to it. "You trust me, all of you?" he appealed. "Don't you?" His chestnut eyes looked anxious. He mocked Charlotte, yet she became aware that he was desperate, so she said more gently, till he hovered in the air before her, "Tell me, where are you taking us?" But he ignored her. Charlotte was almost crying. All eyes looked at her, all eyes, even Emma's. Only Maggot, her friend, was aloof, looking out over the lake. Otherwise it was all eyes. Very sternly, in a last effort, Charlotte said, "None of us is coming unless you tell us where we are going. None of us." And she looked at the boy straight, forcing his eyes up to hers. The mockery quivered and was suddenly gone. He brushed his hair back, and with it the leaf that had fallen on his head an age before, and looked at her beseechingly for a moment. Then he fell to the ground, stricken, and crouched there shaking, his arm curved above his head like a protective wing. He was weeping and quivering all over like a bird caught in a trap. Charlotte was ashamed and landed swiftly beside him to stroke and soothe him while he wept. The children, hovering over, were a bodyguard, and Maggot was an angel, watching and determined. At last the boy looked up, no longer tearful. "Charlotte's right," he said. "I don't think you would regret coming with me. You'd be children forever. You'd fly forever. But I must tell you this. You could never come back." And that's the end of chapter 1.